Good morning, Alpha. What's with the stink eye?
Oh, I don't know. It's just you haven't been very impressive lately.
Well, okay, we have a few announcements that we'd like you to relay to the public.
This better be good.
Alright, first up, we discontinued the M1 MacBook Air, but don't be upset too quickly, because it's now available for certified refurbished even cheaper than it was before.
Oh, okay. That's not bad.
But also, to take up that place of the now discontinued M1 MacBook Air, we have put the M2 MacBook Air in its place, starting at $1,000.
So that's basically the new baseline MacBook Air. You know, that's okay. It's a really good laptop. Easily recommendable.
Yeah, good for some people.
So then, what about the 15-inch?
No, the 15-inch M2 was also discontinued.
Come again?
Why did we discontinue it? You ask? Well, that's because we now have a new MacBook Air 15-inch to take its place. The M3!
And let me guess, it's going to cost the same as the previous 15-inch M2 MacBook Air.
But of course it does, because we know how much our customers value big screens.
Tim, why do you even bother trying to relay news to me? Why?
How is this guy so hard to impress these days?
So yeah, Apple has recently just put out their new MacBook Airs, the M3 models, be it in a 13-inch form factor or a 15-inch form factor, your preference. You guys know mine. There's a reason why I went 16-inch MacBook Pro back when this came out. And yeah, this news isn't particularly exciting, but that's because as I realized Apple had launched this, I think they're going to have themselves a slight problem. And they kind of took care of this slight problem by completely discontinuing the M2 15-inch model. Yeah, you can't buy that anymore. If you want a 15-inch MacBook Air, you want the big screen like me, you have to spend $1,300 for the M3 model. They don't have a cheaper M2 model. And here comes the problem with the rest of the MacBook lineup, the 13-inch lineup. People who buy MacBook Airs, I don't think they care that much about performance. And ever since M1 launched, and we've noticed this ever since M2 even came out, most people didn't really have that much interest in terms of M2, and that's because M1, despite it being the first generation M series chip for Apple Silicon Macs, M1 came in with a banger. It was so good, and despite that, that will be the worst chip ever in a Mac. Okay, well, A12Z was also slightly worse, but that was only available for developers. M1 is technically the worst consumer-grade Apple processor you will get any Mac, and it came in so hot and packed such a punch to the point where I don't think anybody would really need more performance than that. And remember, we're talking about average Joes here. Average Joes are the type of people to buy MacBook Airs, not us tech enthusiasts. We are the type of people to pay thousands upon thousands of dollars for Apple's MacBook Pro, be it in their 14 or 16-inch factors. Average Joes, what do they do on their computers? Well, for the most part, nothing usually pro-intensive. And even if they do get into slight pro-intensive stuff, like light video editing or maybe some light music, I don't know exactly what a pro-average consumer does with their laptops, but if I had to guess, it's probably not gonna require that much more hardware than what the base level MacBook Air is probably gonna offer. And that was the case with M1. M1 was so good even for basic prosumers and not actual enthusiasts who need a laptop super high-end to get their professional stuff done. The truth is, I could actually get by with the performance of the M1 MacBook Air if I wanted to. The reason why I didn't get the M1 MacBook Air, however, was because of its screen size. You know how I work here, you go big or you go home. That's just how we do things around here. And that was ultimately why I did not get the M1 MacBook Air, despite how amazing of a value that laptop is. Seriously, the price to performance, it blows literally every single other laptop in existence out of the water. And that is the reason why it is still such a popular choice. Even it's only 4 years old, that laptop is amazing. And so when the M2 MacBook Airs came around, sure, it had its cool redesign that sadly lost the iconic wedge. I kind of liked the iconic wedge design, to be honest. I also really liked the gold color on the M1 and not the M2 series, but that's just personal preference. But we found that for the most part, a lot of people were particularly interested in the M2 MacBook Air because they were still selling the M1 brand new at the time. And sure, it may have been 2 years old at the time. It was still so good. It packed such a solid punch to the point where you just could not question its value. And as a result, not that many people bought at least the 13-inch version of the M2. When the 15-inch version of the M2 MacBook Air came out, that's when sales started to pick up, and it wasn't for the 13-inch version, it was for the 15-inch. Apple for the longest time had been avoiding an entire market, average consumers who want a laptop with a big screen. They have been avoiding that market for so long, and finally with the 15-inch M2 MacBook Air coming out last year, that finally addressed that market. And I have to say, there are times where I have to visit a university because I'm a member of the choir at that university, and I see so many 15-inch MacBook Airs in that university like you would not believe. Students bought the smurf out of that version of the MacBook Air. That's why I was mad at Apple for taking so long for addressing that, because genuinely, if that was out at the time, I probably would have bought that specific laptop and not this 16-inch MacBook Pro, because the value proposition of the 15-inch MacBook Air was so much better. And yeah, I know it's an inch difference, but it's a bigger screen laptop. I can tolerate 15-inch displays. I can at least tolerate that. Anything smaller, no, get it out of my face. But now we have M3 coming into the mix here to mix some things up, and I think Apple's really going to start to notice they're going to have a serious problem at their hands. Basically, what happened when the M2 MacBook Air came out is going to literally happen in the exact same way to the M3 MacBook Air. At least that's my prediction. And the 15-inch, well, people are still going to buy the smurf out of the 15-inch because Apple's not selling the M2 version anymore, so of course people are going to buy the M3 version. That's their only option, brand new at least. But in terms of the M3 13-inch, it might actually suffer literally the exact same problem that the M2 did at launch. It might suffer even worse because, while not that many people prefer to shop certified refurbished because they prefer buying something brand new straight off the line and have it last as long as humanly possible, I can understand why people buy brand new despite that. Actually, when it comes to Apple's certified refurbished program, you'd be amazed at how amazing the quality is. They basically replace every single component of it, and all they do is just ship it in a cheaper, less expensive box. That's how great their certified refurbished program is. Just consider it a brand new laptop. It's that good. But a lot of people still prefer not to do certified refurbished. So if you want to buy brand new, I can understand why. But I think if people are going to be buying brand new MacBook Airs, and keep in mind, these are people who buy MacBook Airs, these are average Joes, not pros. Remember, MacBook Pro is supposed to be for the professional. And unfortunately, they also think it happens to not be for professionals as well. Base model 14-inch MacBook Pro. Considering what the M1 MacBook Air was capable of for the average consumers, it was literally overkill for them. Well, it's still the case with M2. M2 is still quite literally overkill for most people for what they do with their laptops, which for the most part is a bunch of web browsing and word processing. Wow, that's a really tough task. Like, I can do that on my 2009 iMac easily. And so, yeah, I can understand why the M3 is not going to be a popular pick, because M2 is still going to be overkill for most users. So I think the 13-inch MacBook Air is still not going to see that impressive of sales, and the only way it would actually spike up is if Apple gets rid of the M2 version of the MacBook Air and make M3 like their only option, just like what they did with the 15-inch MacBook Air. And so those are my thoughts. I have a pretty good feeling that the 13-inch version of the M3 MacBook Air is not going to sell too well. well. 15-inch, probably still gonna do pretty well, especially anyone who's in the market for a MacBook Air, because seriously, you go big or you go home when it comes to screen size. That's how we do things around here, and apparently a lot of people happen to agree with me. They're kind of tired of small screens. In fact, actually, you'd be surprised how many average Joes I talk to actually care about having a big display, and I can understand why. The display is how you interface with the device. It's how you see what the device is doing, and having a bigger one makes it so much easier to see what the device is doing. That, and you also happen to get less headaches when trying to stare at an extremely tiny display. Yeah, I can understand why the 15-inch was so popular. But anywho, at this point, I'm just rambling. Those are my thoughts on the new MacBook Air release. RIP M1 MacBook Air. You will forever be my actual favorite MacBook Air. Well, 15-inch MacBook Air is actually still my top favorite, but M1 is still way up there because it is such an amazing value. It's literally a laptop I can recommend to almost anyone, except for anyone who cares about having a big display. What are your guys' thoughts on the new M3 MacBook Airs and the discontinuation of the M1? Feel free to let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Do me a favor and interact with the stuff below. My name is DeWolf, Random Alpha, signing out.